a lot of things throughout the year with the AFI, but we've kicked off the AFI Alumni Workshop Series. And you gave us some really great feedback after that. We literally read every single piece of feedback you give us and we take it on board. And you said to us, that was great, but we want you to show us winning pitch decks. Take us under the hood, show us really what it takes to win a pitch. So Larry is an award-winning cinematographer and director and the founder of popular filmmaking tool ShotDeck. As a cinematographer, Larry shot over 35 feature films, numerous pilots, hundreds of commercials and music videos, including things like the Hangover trilogy, Garden State, Due Date, and most recently, the Joker films. His films have grossed over $4 billion at the box office. So welcome to the stage, Larry. I'm sure everyone knows what ShotDeck is here, but just to kick off with that, what is ShotDeck? Why did you create it? What's it doing?
ShotDeck is a immense film library, image library of the most referential images from movies, television, commercials, music videos, over 1.5 million stills, 7,000 titles. And it's a tool for filmmakers and creatives across all spectrums to use to help express their vision in a much more efficient and effective way. That's the key, the main sort of idea behind it. It's a place for discovery and inspiration, reference and research. And it was built because I needed it. That's the short of it. And for the longest time when I would start a project, the first thing I would do is try to find reference images. And that went to like me just trying to get the job. And then once I got the job, then the reference and research material only sort of compounded from there, because in every conversation with all departments across a film set, you're constantly using the language of film. So you'll be saying, oh, it's like that shot from The Conformist, and oh, what shot? Let's see it, and how do you get that fast? Or let's look at whatever it might be. I'm doing a movie that takes place in a hospital. Let's look at hospitals so we can talk to the production designer about where the lighting fixtures might be or what kind of fixtures. It goes on and on and on, and that's basically what, it didn't exist. And so even though I'm a cinematographer and a director, I was like, all right, let's now be an entrepreneur. So that's how it started.
So here we are. Tell us, what is Canva and ShotDeck launching?
We have this incredible library, and what we usually use it for is it's a depository to find all these amazing images, but then build those decks elsewhere. And what better place than Canva? And for somebody like me, and you're going to see when you go through my decks, as much as I built this platform, I need help building decks. And so this is a much needed thing. Like the app was for me, Canva now integrated with ShotDeck is what I need next. And so I'm very excited about it making my decks a lot better.
Larry, I'm just keen to kind of set the scene and understand what your creative process looks like. An idea comes into your head. Take us through kind of those key beats to then starting to get or translate what is in your head onto a piece of paper, and talk to us about your creative process.
So obviously it all starts with a script. And so from that first step of the script, what I'll do is I'll go through and I'll break down the script into every single scene, every single log line for that scene, and start a little sort of Bible of sorts to collect all my thoughts in terms of just like what are the first things that come to mind in terms of what I'm thinking, and ideas, shots, images, visuals. And then I go on ShotDeck. Before ShotDeck existed, I went everywhere. I Google anywhere that I could find images that felt like they spoke to the vision of what I was looking for, scene to scene, shot to shot, as well as across the whole movie, to find tone and color and composition and lighting that felt like the movie that I was sort of pitching to make or wanted to make. And that came in the collection. Usually my first step was I'd go to Arcana, which is like a bookstore here, and find maybe a art book or a photography book. And then I would go to the used DVD store, and I would just like buy I probably should have gone to the library because I didn't have money for this at the time, but I would just buy DVDs, and sometimes I would buy something just to find one shot of a cemetery with umbrellas in the rain. And it was like I was doing this year after year after year and collecting all these sort of disparate folders of imagery. But that was part of the process. And And that's still part of my process, and every single movie, commercial, any project I do starts the same exact way.
And something you said this week, which I thought was interesting, was that you're also trying to find images for what your film isn't as much as what it is.
I think that's probably the most important thing, is when you're having a conversation, usually you're sort of looking at things and going, that's not it. But you needed to find something to sort of have you and the director, production designer, to look to one thing and realize why it isn't it, right? And I think the thing about Shot Deck and the thing about just the process of being creative is this brain food to kind of just keep dreaming upon ideas and using something to stimulate your brain. And you'll see when I go through Shot Deck, I'll create massive numbers of decks for each project and fill them with inspiration and ideas, and they will never relate exactly one-to-one, but they all somehow sort of feed the brain to create something brand new.
You must create multiple decks, though. You don't just create one-off deck. What does you're creating multiple decks throughout your entire creative process?
Yeah, it goes all the way through the process. So starts with trying to get the job. That might be a pitch for as a director or as a DP. Then there's like a production deck, which is usually like a research and reference library. And I'll work with the production designer and other teams to create this sort of master folder of all these images that can become the template for what we're trying to do as a team. And then all the way through production, I'll sometimes reference those images, even if, let's say, I'm lining up a shot, talking to my gaffer about lighting, talking to the DIT about color or contrast. Sometimes you're like lighting a scene and it's scripted for dawn, and you just want to sort of have a collective idea of what dawn feels like. So to find it and look at it to sort of reset your brain for dawn. And then through color, all the way through the DI and into post-production, you sort of want, to again look at contrast or cyan or some color that's very specific to get on the same page with the colorist. So it goes all the way through the process.
Okay, let's jump into the deck, shall we?
Yeah, I mean, I did a movie. It's a hard movie. And for the first time in my life, I felt actually burnt out from shooting. But I had been, for a couple of years before that, been sort of thinking about directing and trying my hat in that. So let's pull up this first deck. So this movie got made. It didn't do great, otherwise I'd still be directing. But I'm very proud of it, and it was an amazing experience. The movie, and you can go to the next slide, is like called Bastards, yeah. And it was a story about twins. I'm an identical twin, so I had some relationship to this. And I brought this deck to Paramount and won the job. And you're going to see, it's not good. Canva didn't exist yet. Shot Deck didn't exist. But basically, you can look at it. And in fact, it didn't even include any real words or anything. It's like, at first, I'm just trying to paint the picture. And this is sort of a platform from which you can build a good deck. Sort of a director's statement. And so this first slide is really reflecting the idea that this movie is about twins and their relationship, even though they're different. And that's me and my brother. That's all across there. Fun fact, in the upper left corner, you see the little guy who's in between my brother and I? That guy is the president of the Los Angeles Clippers. Yeah, a huge basketball guy. Don't show him this picture. He'll be very upset. Anyway, the movie's about two brothers, so I'm building a slide about who I wanted for the movie. Ed Helms, who's there, ended up becoming the person who plays Peter. And then I remember when I was pitching this, I said, oh, Chris Pratt would be great. And they go, Chris Pratt's not a movie star. This is before Jurassic. This is before Guardians. Yeah, he's a movie star. Bottom left, Owen Wilson ended up being the guy who's in the movie. So I'm building basically a cast ideas for the deck. And I'm going through this with all the executives and the producer at the time, Ivan Reitman, and talking about maybe moms. Amazingly enough, the mom we got is not one of these moms. It was Glenn Close, who was amazing. And then there's a football player dad that they were looking for. Terry Bradshaw was the guy. He was the guy in the movie. And then we're looking for another dad. None of these guys were it. Chris Walken ended up being one of the dads. J.K. Simmons was another dad. There's Chris Walken. And so I'm basically building like all the potential people to fill their brains with why they want to make this movie and give it to a DP to direct. And so this is a lot of it is just cast, because of course cast really tells the story. And then I'm starting to build tone here, right? That slide on the top is due date, a movie I did, so that obviously helps them sort of imagine, okay, the tone of this movie. And further on, building tone, and now I'm going into some of the visual references. These are a bunch of still photographers. Again, Shot Deck didn't exist. And I'm building a little bit of the tone. And here's further more tone and all these kind of things. And so you can see it's not the most, beautifully composed deck or beautifully put together deck, but it's presenting this kind of fully realized vision of what the movie would be. And interestingly enough, the movie didn't do great. Don't go on Rotten Tomatoes, it's embarrassing. But it's better than the Rotten Tomatoes score, I can tell you that. And it tested well, and it's a confusing thing. I still run around in my brain on why it didn't do better. These are like locations that we're going to be in to show the scope of the movie. But what's interesting about this, and this is something also to learn about, is I remember at the end of the pitch, and they gave me the job. We ended up making it Warner Brothers because they're sort of like were dragging their feet, as it often happens in the film industry. And so we left and we took it somewhere else. But I remember Adam Goodman, who at the time was president of Paramount Pictures of the film division, and he said, "It's funny, I thought we were going to make like a Wedding Crashers. This feels more like an Alexander Payne movie." And the thing was, I wanted to make an Alexander Payne movie. They, I think, wanted Wedding Crashers. And it could be that's also one of the reasons why the movie sort of was a feathered fish, as they say. It's sort of halfway between two things. And I think if I took anything away from the movie, I was expressing some of that vision of the Alexander Payne thing in this deck. And even though they gave me the job, I think that sort of, hybrid version of what the studio expects versus what the filmmaker wants is, I think, one of the most important things to communicate in your deck. I'm going to show you this Godzilla deck because out of that experience making father figures, then I started building Shot Deck. And I remember, and again, you guys are filmmakers, so I haven't talked about this a lot, but after Father Figures failed, I got a call from William Morris, and they're like, "We're dropping you as a client." That sucked because I had a wife who was pregnant, and she's in the car on speaker, and I think she looked, and we hadn't been together that long, and I think she was like, the look in her eyes of fear of like, did I just catch the wrong fish in the ocean, was like a fear I felt very specifically. So I was like, I have to get a job like right now, and there was not a lot of good jobs out there, but there was an opportunity for a movie, Godzilla King of Monsters, and I remember they said, "Well, you're not right for it. We've tried, and nobody wants to, comedy. This is science fiction." And I was like, "Get me in the room. Can you just get me in the room?" And I ended up calling the producer directly, and I just said, "Can you get me in the room?" And she's like, "We're basically down the line with another DP, but you can get in a meeting tomorrow." This was Thursday night. She said, "You could get in a meeting tomorrow, but we have to make this decision by Saturday." And this deck, there were 5,000 or 6,000 images on Shot Deck at the time. It wasn't even beta. And I built this deck, which is only visuals, and only visuals from Shot Deck at the time. So it had nothing but visuals because I was in a real time crunch. And I'll just go through it quickly, but you can see that these images are much more cinematic, and they represent the language of film that we talked about. And I took this deck into the meeting with Mike Doherty the next day, and I was at a gynecologist appointment with my wife, an OBGYN, to like check on the baby's health. Saturday morning when he called and he said, "You got the job." So I was the last guy in, and I built this deck overnight. So it's really important, decks, and it's really important to express your vision, even if it's in a sort of a functional way. But the fact that so many images from this movie represented things that the director connected with and was really wanting the movie to look like, certain aliens, close encounters, the sort of the general tone of the movie allowed me to win that job. So even though when Kate said, "Show me a winning deck," I said, "This one's terrible, but it won me the job." And also I was like, case study number 1 for Shot Deck.
You were customer zero of Shot Deck. So the Godzilla deck that we just saw, you were literally beta testing what we now know of Shot Deck to have, 1.5 million cinematic photos in it.
Let me just then use this to just express how I use Shot Deck to start every job, right? So, well, first, Shot Deck, as we said, like let's say you're doing a movie in a hospital, and it's a huge library of imagery, right? So you can pare this down to go, oh, I just want night shots in a hospital. I just want, wide shot or medium shots, or close-ups, and then just pare it down so you can sort of find imagery that takes place in a hospital, interiors, of course. So you can just really find this kind of thing. Or let's say I remember I always wanted to find sort of images from diners, and then like Venetian blinds, right? And just, I remember, what I remember, and let's see, hopefully some stuff will come up. If I'm looking at diners, which invariably often have Venetian blinds, but here's an example of just the types of things I was hoping a database like this would have if we keyworded everything so ubiquitously, right? So not only do we have all this sort of key crew members and time period it takes place and genre and all these sort of bespoke keywords in here, so we can find other, shots of Venetian blinds from across all spectrums, right? And really sort of, because invariably, it's not just a tool for cinematographers, it's not just a tool, it's a tool for every department, right? You might just need images of matchbooks or images of signs or whatever it is. I remember, there was a movie called Peggy Sue Got Married, right? Also Francis Ford Coppola, and a great Francis Ford Coppola movie. I don't know how it did in the box office. The movie's spectacular. Jordan Cronenweth, right? I can go see Jordan Cronenweth and see what Jordan Cronenweth, the DP, has shot. Well, you can see here. Blade Runner, Peggy Sue Got Married, Stop Making Sense, right? Like this guy, he was an incredible, filmmaker. But Peggy Sue Got Married, there was something in Peggy Sue Got Married that I always responded to. And here you can change the sort of size, so you can go single card or quad or those kind of things, right? That's pretty straightforward stuff. I've never seen this before, which is when you're dealing with a production designer and you're dealing with like building sets or anything you do, you're invariably going, well, how are we dealing with the window treatments? This movie did something I'd never seen before, which is it has legs, right? It has shears in the middle. It also has pull-down shades that are also providing a different color. So in each room of this room, like the pull-down shades are another color to add. But I've proposed this to production designers, and they're like, all three? That's insane. And I would bring up this shot from Peggy Sue Got Married, and you're like, well, who else is gonna have shears, so like, shears, right, plus pull-down curtains? Like no other movie's gonna do that, right? Or it's like pull-down, I think I was called them that. Pull-down shades. No other movie except Joker, because I said to the person, I said to the production designer, like I want both. I want legs, I want shears, and I want the pull-down shades. And so there you go. It's like an example of I needed to show them Peggy Sue Got Married to not just justify that like somebody else could do it, but yeah, I love the way that these pull-down shades not only created lighting control, but they also added another color into the frame. And so there's a perfect example of like when we're in the process of making the film, we're constantly, whether it's fluorescence or things on the like I'll give you another one, just a quick one from Good Time. Remember that movie from the Safdies? I don't know if anyone ever saw that movie. It's great movie, right? I remember the color of this scene in the beginning when this guy's interviewing him, and I remember going, I like this little double header lamp because not only does it control the light, it's not just a bare bulb, but that light, you could put a bigger bulb in, it can go down and see that, right? And it's showing up in little ways, but this is what I was hoping sort of was the power of Shot Deck. And it's not just that you can find incredible images, and I often will start a project and just go on to browse shots. And sometimes you can search by random or you can search by most popular. And sometimes I always say to people, if you're stuck, or even if you're a film student, and this is we made this also as a huge education platform, and it's in 200 schools all across the world and every country. But I say build 4 decks, and this is exactly how I start every project even now. But if you're just starting out and you're just trying to figure out what your voice is, build 4 decks, right? And those 4 decks are color, tone, composition, and lighting, right? And then just start populating those decks, right? So you can basically start a deck, right? A new deck called, you could call it your favorites, you can call it whatever but let's say it's just about composition. So let's say you sort of build a deck, right? You build a deck called composition and add stuff to it. And then this becomes sort of your quick add. So in any corner, you just basically can quick add to that. So I just would start going, well, yeah, I like this shot, so I'll quick add, quick add, quick add. And invariably, if you do this with these 4 things, that will tell you so much about your own aesthetic, right? It's like and a director, I've met more directors, because I work with a lot of writer-directors, and they don't need to know anything about lighting or cinematography. They don't, to be a great director. What they need to do, often when they're writer-director, they already wrote a great script. So they don't have to have any technical knowledge. But how do we communicate? And so if I show them imagery and they respond to something, maybe it's got a lot of headroom, and I go, great, they like that. That's an avant-garde sort of compositional style. Mr. Robot or something like that would be a good example of that extra headroom, right? But if you start looking at that, that will tell you so much about what their style is, or what they if you show them something's too dark and they go, or something that's too bright, they'll tell you that. But you need imagery to sort of do that. So if you build these 4 decks, I feel like that already sort of gets you there. And that's my first part of the process, no matter what I do. One thing you can do in here is you can go to color, right? Obviously, these are all sort of mixed, listed colors in here to look. But you can also go here and just pick from a wheel. And so you can pick something like this. And what you can do in ShotDeck is this is a specific RGB color, but I can now change the distance from the color, which means if I want it to be almost exactly that color, I'll sort of make it, all the way to here. Now, nothing may show, oh no, I'm sorry, go the other way. So the distance is really close. This will be very specific to that distance. Or I can sort of scale it to create more options that are like having that. Or the proportion of the shot, right? So if I raise this proportion to even 10%, it's almost filling the shot with that proportion. So you have this sort of scalability of finding very specific colors if you're looking for something very specific as far as that. So that's a tool that I think sometimes isn't as clear that you can use in ShotDeck. And of course you see all the filters here. So as I was saying, so I'll build a deck and I can show you. This goes across all spectrums, right? Here's the deck for Romeo, right? I could show you the deck for Juliet. It's out. It's in the theaters. Juliet is actually, Romeo is the working title for Joker. The working title for Folie à Deux is Juliet. Romeo and Juliet. There you go. And it's a love story, right? So, you can see this. Even Joker timing. I built a deck later when we were doing color timing, just as a reset point to find contrast. Because sometimes, particularly nowadays, the DIs, digital intermediate to color time, is so vast a tool that you can get really spread out in terms of the options. So me and my longtime colorist will sometimes just need some reference to return to. And this movie, Kes, which is like a fantastic movie, and the Chris Mangus, who's one of my favorite DPs of all time, shot it early, late 60s film, but has this beautiful contrast to it, right? Beautiful tonality. And so I'll use that to reference things just to kind of get us back online. So you can see all the decks that I built for Juliet. I'll just show you an example of it. So here, you just take this carrot and open up. I have a deck that's for ceiling fluorescence, right? I have a deck for moon examples, right? They dance on the moon. They dance like in that scene on the rooftop in front of a moon. And it's like, well, how big's the moon, right? Like that was a hand-painted backing The whole backing is hand painted. Like, what does the moon look like, right? So we need references, or what would it look like to have a body in front of a moon? So we're pulling references from there, right? Exteriors, right? I even put some of Joker back in this deck so we can be reminded of the tone of the first film. But I'm doing ones for courtroom. I'm doing ones for a holding cell, right? There's a scene at the end when he's on the phone. This is obviously, from Buffalo 66 and sort of the tone of that. And again, they're not going to be one-to-one, but I'm building a deck for almost every set. I'm building a deck I still start with my same 4 decks. That's part of every process, whether I'm doing a Domino's commercial or whether I'm doing, Joker. And that's the same process. I did a movie last year called The Bride with Maggie Gyllenhaal directing, with Christian Bale and Jessie Buckley. Did the exact same process for that as well. And so, what I was hoping to create with Shot Deck, and sort of my dream of it, is it became literally the visual library of film, right? It became the encyclopedia of movies. And every time we add a new film or anything on the site, it's like we now have this record, like this sort of paper of record of the visual, parts of the movie. And what I also wanted it to become was almost a de facto resume tool for discovering other people and talented people. I always say if you wanted to see my work, you could go to lawrenceschur.com. It's the worst website you've ever seen because I haven't even updated it in 12 years because I started building Shot Deck. And I'm like, well, just go on Shot Deck if you want to see the work, right? This is going to express my resume way better than, a bunch of trailers on a website and IMDb's, inert list of my credits, right? And you can stack it and sort of, this little thing here will show you can see it in titles, right? So that gives you some ability just to see there, and then you go deeper into something. But the idea that this kind of view of all the shots kind of mixed together, and if we go to random or something like that, it's going to tell you so much more about the breadth of my work than anything else. And so, there's discovery, there's inspiration, there's education, and there's also the idea that in this time of AI-generated imagery, we also want it to be sort of the record of human-generated imagery, right? It's like this is now the record of 120 years of filmmaking and motion picture photography, and the history of these films. And so my hope and dream is that it becomes 100 million images and covers basically everything. So, it's a vast undertaking, but it's been really, really fun and exciting. And Kate, have I missed anything on this demo? I feel like...
I'm going to show them the decks for the fake movie.
Yeah, so the fake movie we're doing is not that far from the real movie, but Nature's Fury, Insect's Revenge. It's like... and so we started. So if you open up this, right? I started with the same thing, building a deck for tone, right? And I'll change the view to something a little bigger. Excuse me. A deck for composition, right? A deck for lighting, a deck for color, right? And this is all stuff to kind of get the process started. And then I'll start building other decks, one for insects, one for atmosphere. I don't know if we've even populated them yet, Kate, but we can show that. But I'd also, let's say, also in here, I go, well, this process, and I'm doing a movie that I leave for in a week in Australia, just to be close to Kate. I was like, I got to get close to Canva. Let me find a movie in Australia. And it's similar, right? Not similar to this movie, but it's similar in the sense of, I go, oh, you know what I need? I need to find references for day for night, right? So day for night, if nobody knows in the room, is when you basically shoot during the day to make it look like night. It's also one of the things, before a shot deck, you might go, oh, I need prison shots. I need prison movie stuff. So you go, oh, let me find some images from Shawshank Redemption. But the nice thing about, shot deck is this idea that you would search for one thing and discover something altogether. So I remember The Beach, the movie, the Danny Boyle movie, underrated, by the way. And these day for night shots here were kind of stunning, you know. And, you know, Castaway has to have day for night. Like anything where there's no motivated source, you could light it, but it always looks a little funky. And so here's a perfect example of day for night, you know. But I can now look here and look for day for night as a tag and now find all these other images. So like what I'll do here, let's say, is I go, well, this is sort of an interesting one from the Insider. It's not really day for night, and this one I remember from White Lotus. So what I'll do is, even for the deck that Kate's going to help us build, is let me do a new one called Day for Night, right? And I'm going to add that, and I'm going to start populating that deck for a little bit. I'm going to add this shot to it, right? Sorry, one second. I'm just going to do here. Good. All right, good. So let's just start populating this with some shots day for night so that we can build that into our deck. And then when I go to the deck side of things, I can take this day for night and I can drop it into nature's fury. And then when you open a deck within this, you can move them around. But the other thing I'll do is I'll take this deck, right, and I'm going to share it with Kate, right? So I'm just going to basically put Kate in here. And then that deck immediately shows up in Kate's decks. And so she can get it at the exact same time. And that's why when we then go to Canva, you know, and whenever we go to Canva, you're going to see, you'll be able to search on Shot Deck, and you'll also see all your decks. And I think one of the critical things and how the partnership's going to work really well, and if you're a Shot Deck user, you become a Shot Deck user, and you want to use Canva, which you will, of course, because it's an amazing product, build your decks first because it's a great way to search, use every single search component. Build those decks. The truth of the matter, it's called Shot Deck. The decks are really the Canva. They're really like folders, right? But I'm not going to change the name to Shot Folders. It doesn't sound good. But like our decks are like folders. So they're like a depository for every idea. And the beautiful thing about that, because of course I could take this image, blow it up full size, and drag it onto my desktop. A lot of people do that. The problem is it's never accessible again in any sort of way. If you keep it into Shot Deck, well, now when you go on your deck and you go here, you now have all these other keywords. You can find out all these other things, and it still has all this metadata attached to it. So I always say, like, build more decks than you could ever need. Nobody's built more decks than me because I still use this every single project. So I've archived, like, so many decks from every single thing, and they all have, you know, like I said, there's a Taco Bell commercial I did with Sean Baker last year that was like one of those time loop movies, and like time loop, but it was Taco Bell. I don't know. And we shot in South Africa where the cars aren't even on the right side of the street, so we had to flip the negative on every single driving shot. Go figure. I guess it was cheaper. But anyway, and so I built a deck even for that, you know? And if you watched like the end of the little spot, you would see stuff that looked like this Fury Road stuff. And this was a way for Sean and I to communicate in a very small time. All right, so back to Nature's Fury. So yeah, so the best thing about this now is I can build stuff, my collaborators, production designers, we can all share the same deck and start populating them together, or share other decks with each other, bring them into Canva and start building.
So you've seen our fake movie, Nature's Fury, Insects Revenge. We've created all of the decks and all of the folders in Shot Deck, but you still need to pull your pitch deck together. And we've got a title. You might not even have a title, but we've made one up at this point. We've got a log line. So Larry's given me this log line. But this is a pretty intimidating point, right? This is a pretty basic slide to look at, and you've got maybe, like Larry did, 24 hours to build a pitch deck to try to get on the movie. So I'm going to show you how a creative process that you can go through, taking inspiration off Larry's creative process, how you can build the look and feel using images, colors, a color palette, and tone, and then within minutes spin up a pretty decent pitch deck using Canva. So this is our log line. So this is what Larry sent me the other day after going for a walk on the beach, sending me this for inspiration. So the log. So alone on an island, a nature guide at a camp, and two young kids must survive a massive attack of insects. Will they make it to the secret lab that holds the truth that will save them, or will they all die by sunrise? Okay, so how do we start building the deck in Canva? Well, let's start with Shot Deck. So let's start to show you how you can bring those shots from the folders or the decks in Shot Deck right into Canva. And we do it through the new Shot Deck app in Canva. But I've already used it. Yeah, it deserves a round of applause. So it's showing up in my left-hand column here. But for all the first-time users, of which, the first time you jump onto Canva and try to find Shot Deck, you just go to Apps, type in Shot Deck, and here it is. And it'll prompt you to put your username and password in, and it'll do all that. But click on that, and then it'll appear forevermore on the left-hand side here. And here are all the shots. So this is the 1.5 million shots of Shot Deck that Larry was just taking you through, now right at the point of where you're designing your pitch deck in Canva. And just like in Shot Deck, you can search for anything here, insects, and all the amazing tags that you saw Larry's Shot Deck has, which I said, how many taggers do you have at Shot Deck? This is wild. So, you can just click on any shot and it'll automatically move it into the top here, and you can kind of start to snap it into these frames. Or you can click on the 3 dots, and all of those tags that Larry was showing us are starting to pull through here as well. So you can just use the search just as Larry has. But I'm going to start to build out those compositions of photos, like color, lighting, composition, and tone, just like Larry did, using the deck that we built for Nature's Fury in Shot Deck. And that lives over here in Decks. So here's this Nature's Fury. Here's my Shot Deck account. So I've got Nature's Fury, Canva Faves, which is something Larry created, a test and a favorites. And it's all pulling now through into Canva. So we drop that down, and here's the tone that we built together. Here's, the composition lighting. Which one? I might have to refresh it to show that one that you just created, Larry, but that would... Oh, there it is. Wonderful. Okay, so we just go into color and just start dragging them in like that. And you can start to kind of build what that looks like in Canva. Lighting, you're starting to build the lighting collection, dragging those in. And these are frames. These are really cool, snappable frames that just enable you in Canva to drag and drop pictures in. You can kind of move them around like that. So that's now the Shot Deck app in Canva, which means you're not now downloading all of the images from Shot Deck onto your desktop. I don't want to show you my desktop, it's pretty embarrassing. And then re-uploading them to Canva. It's just making that process for you really, really quick. So here's our color, our lighting, our composition, our tones. So that's using Shot Deck in Canva to get your image collection together. You can also use Canva. We've got Shot Deck, our own content library as well. And every piece of content in Canva is found in this Elements tab here on the left. So everything from all of our shapes, our graphics, our AI, our photos, our videos, charts, stickers, all these frames and grids, mock-ups, if you need to mock up things for costume design or whatnot. We've got some really great tools here. So this is all within the Elements tab. But based on the logline, I'm like, I need more shots for, say, insects, dark rainforest, island sunset. So I just type in here, similar to what we did in Shot Deck, and here are all these options come up. So all of insect photos, insect videos. I quite like this one. I found this one this morning, so we'll use that one there. So you're starting to now build out the collection as well through our content library. The third way is to use, we've got AI tools baked into the product as well. Just like the Shot Deck and Canva app launched this week, as did Canva launch this, we've called October Droptober because we've dropped a whole bunch of new features into the product, one of which is Dreamlab. So we acquired an AI company a few months ago called Leonardo AI, and it's now right within Canva. So this is a a prompt that we can use to head into the Dream Lab, this is all powered by Leonardo AI. I can pop in this prompt and create it. And the more specific with the prompt, the better, obviously. So I've said dark cinematic movie, dark hues, dramatic background, hundreds of dangerous giant insects, and it starts to pull these up. So you can either download it here, or if you press edit, it'll literally open up a new canvas for you to start to bake that into your decks. So that's the new product of DreamLab, but you can also go into Magic Media as well, right within the point where you are designing to generate images. So if you don't have Magic Media up, back to your apps again, type in Magic Media, and it'll always be this first top one here. Press on it, and here you can see I've kind of tested this morning, but you put in the same prompt, generate again, and these are the images that that prompt generated. So, a few minutes in, we've got a whole bunch of images collection ready for our pitch deck from ShotDeck, from Canva's platform as well. But what about color? Color is so important. It's such a key way that you express, the vision for your film as well. But it can be so hard to figure out what colors to start to pull together. And you need to be consistent with colors in your pitch deck to make it cohesive. So I'm going to show you 3 ways to get colors, a color palette for your pitch deck. So I've pulled in this is one of our shots that we had in ShotDeck. I don't know what movie is this from, maybe someone knows, but there you go, King Kong 2005. So I want to take inspiration from the colors in this photo to build out the color palette for my pitch deck. There's 3 ways you can do that. If you just want to apply the colors of this image onto a specific slide, that's the first way. So you select the image, you right-click, you apply the colors to a page, and it just starts to do that. So see, I've got these color palette wheels here. If you don't like the option, you just keep shuffling through it. So that's one way to apply the colors of a photo onto a specific slide. Another way is you can use the colors from the photos. So Canva will actually pick up all of the actual color codes from every single part of the photo. So let's click on a color wheel here to start building out our color palette. Head up here where that color is. And if you scroll down, all of that should be, maybe the internet's a bit sketchy, but this is the photo colors. So this is pulling in every single photo that's in our deck. You'll recognize some of the ones that we pulled in from ShotDeck previously. It's pulling in the actual hex code color from those photos. So we can start to say, okay, of this photo here, let's build out our color palette by literally just pressing these here, and it's giving us those hex codes straight away. So you can start to build in your color palette that way. The third way is we've got a really cool color picker tool too, just like ShotDeck. So I want to maybe pick a different color on here that didn't come up in that option of photo colors. You just come into the very top plus here and pick the little eyedropper tool, and you can literally pick any color that's on the photo, on the deck, or anywhere on the deck. So maybe I want that lighter blue color. It'll literally change that, and here's the hex code for that color there. So we've now got our color palette, 3 ways to pull together a color palette with the exact color codes. But now we need a font. How many times have you spent hours upon hours trying to find a font to go with like the vibe and the genre of the film? It can take forever. Canva's got literally thousands and thousands of fonts. We've got our own font design team. We also partner with organizations like Monotype and bring in their fonts. But you can go down a rabbit hole with this kind of stuff. So I'm going to show you 2 really cool ways that you can quickly get on a font that will really speak to the vision of your film. The first one is pretty cool. So it's called GrabText. It's fairly new. So Larry talked about comp films when we were having the conversation, and one of the comp films for this insect movie was The Revenant. So I've gone online, I found the movie poster from The Revenant, because I'm thinking, that font from The Revenant, that's the font I want. But how are you going to find that font amongst thousands? You can do that really easily now in Canva. So I've just clicked on this photo, go into Edit, and this has got all the standard full power photo editing tools in here through filters, effects, and all of the apps are brought in. But there's also all these magic features up here as well. So the background remover, if you haven't played with that, that's pretty cool. You can erase certain parts of images, grab certain parts of an image. But let's play with grab text. So I'm going to grab this and I'm going to say, I just want this text here, or I could say all text, and it'll literally grab that for me. Reading glasses on, and then look, I can now take that text and use it. So it's not The Revenant. Let me make it black. It's, what are we called? Nature's Fury. Nature's Fury, Insects Revenge. Yeah, there we go. It's still a work in progress. Nature's Fury, Insects Revenge. And we're using The Revenant font that we wanted, but now it's for our movie. So now we can take that and it's telling us, you know what, that font was Barlow condensed. So that's an easy way that we can rip off font that we like in any product. It doesn't have to be a movie poster, it can be any kind of product you want. It'll read that font and it'll find the closest font to it that we've got, and then you can edit it and use it. The other way is you can actually search Canva's font library using keywords. So I've just created all these text boxes here. You can just press T and that'll create a text box for you. And I've just repeated our movie title here. And I'm going to just brainstorm and have a look at the content library using keywords, what's some kind of fonts that might suit it. So I'm going to highlight this, head up to this font section, and I'm just going to type in scary. So it's going to serve me all the different fonts that look kind of scary, like this one or this one, and you can just start to really narrow down your search. You can type in, sci-fi. And look, here are all kind of sci-fi related fonts. You can type in romance, any kind of genre, and it'll just really save you time to find the kind of fonts that you like. So within 10 minutes, we've got our images that we've pulled from ShotDeck, that we've pulled from Canva's library, we've got our color palette, and we've got our font. And so the best place to save all of that is what's called the Canva brand kit. And this is what's going to save you time, this little setup here. So let me go to Canva and I'll show you what we do now. So this is the Canva homepage. Look, this is Droptober. We're being pretty celebratory this month with all the things that we've dropped. But head over here on left into brand and then brand kits. So we recommend you set up a brand kit for every single project that you do. Just like Larry sets up decks for all of his projects, set up a brand kit for all of your projects. And I'll show you where that'll make your life so much easier in a moment. But I've preset one up for Nature's Fury. And this is where you put all of your fonts, all of your colors, and all of your photos. So these are all the fonts that we found from that photo color picker. And all you do to add a new one is you press plus. Again, you can kind of move that around. You can insert the actual code here. You can actually go, no, I want more of a gradient for that photo, so you can choose more gradients. And you can just add as many colors and as many palettes as you want. Let's get rid of that pink because that doesn't go with our movie. So there are colors. Fonts, same again. I picked one of the fonts that I found using that scary keyword and start to pop them in here. So you're basically telling Canva, okay, every time there's a heading, a title, a subtitle, body text, this is the font type that I want. So we've built that out. And now we've got all our photos. So here are all our photos that we pulled in from ShotDeck. Here's Larry, he's going to go in our deck, and they're all here. So you've built this out. And now it's time to create the deck. So the good news is Canva's got, if you've been on Canva, you would see that there's thousands and thousands of templates, but specific for entertainment, we've worked with a lot of our partners in entertainment, including the AFI. we've said, hey, we're not the experts in entertainment. We can create pretty cool decks and templates, but tell us what the industry want in these decks. So we've got a collection at the moment of 60 entertainment-specific templates. You find them on canva.com/entertainment. And we've got a range of pitch decks, TV series Bibles, treatment decks, mood boards. When it comes time to promote your film, everything from film poster templates, EPK press kits, all your social media pieces, storyboards, portfolio websites. You can also just use ShotDeck for that, as Larry showed us. You can collaborate using a lot of our whiteboard features. We've even got docs like call sheet templates for you as well. So jump on there and have a look. They've been published 19 million times, so it seems like people in the industry are really enjoying using them. But let's just pick a template for Nature's Fury. I'm going to pick Shattered Illusions. So a quick tour through this. It starts off with a film summary, script synopsis, the characters, some pull-up quotes, the tone, visual references, word from the writer, contact us. So it's a pretty kind of simple stock standard deck, but it looks nothing like Nature's Fury. How are we going to turn this to look like our movie? So there's a few really easy ways to do that. Let's firstly build in the color palette and the fonts that we chose. So head up to design up here and head over to styles. And look, here's our brand kit that we created for Nature's Fury. Here's our color palette and here's our fonts. And I could change this brand kit to be another movie that I'm working on. This is all pulling in from the brand kit. And you can say, no, let's work with the brand kit that I chose for that one instead and select it, and it would change all of that. But let's stick with Nature's Fury. And you just keep shuffling. You can shuffle through the color palette and it'll start changing here, and then you apply to all pages down the bottom. So within one click, we're now using the color palette that we've chosen, not from the generic template. Same goes for the fonts. Click on a text box, move over to the font that we'd chosen, select it, apply to all the fonts are now changed. So this is just saving you so much time. Like the deadline's looming, and these in a few clicks you can start to really change it out. But this is not the title of our film. Our film is up the front, so let's get Nature's Fury, Insects Revenge in the title here. And we'll ditch this. And it's not a film by fake person Jonathan Anderson. Lawrence, sure. It's always terrible typing in front of a crowd. Is that right? Yeah, Lawrence Sher. Great, okay, so we've got that. We've put our log line in here, back to where we were. So we're just starting to make it our own, but using a template. You're not worried about kind of formatting and all that kind of thing. But these aren't our images. Who's this random person? Like, let's just start to get rid of these. Oops, I lost that. Get rid of the photos. And I might just delete a couple of these slides in the interest of time, but I'm going to show you where we can pull in the photos. Got film tone, visual references, won't be that person, contact us. Okay, and these are all these frames again that you can pull in from Canva in the Elements tab. All right, so I missed a couple. Oh. All right, so now we've got our blank canvas for photos. We're ready to go. So go down in here into brand. So this is where the whole brand kit lives as well. So look, Nature's Fury, Insects Revenge. We know we're designing for this, the brand kit that we found, and here are all the photos here. So if we go see all, let's use this one. This is the one we used to get our photos, the colors from the photos. So you can literally just drag that in and you can decide, you know, how big you want that. What I tend to like to do on the title page is right-click and just say replace background, and that'll straight away replace the background with that film. But of course, now we can't see the title, so we might just want to shuffle the title to bring up a lighter color palette there, and let's just bump down that transparency there so we can kind of help that to really stand out. And then you just start to kind of pepper in, you know, the shots that you'd pulled and built from your brand kit. So it's literally just dragging and dropping. Well, that's not a key character. Where's Reese? There she is. You know, our kids. You know, just really quickly, because you've done all of this setup. So because of this setup, probably not the greatest photo for that little one, but you get the idea, right? So it's dragging them in. And because you've done this setup in ShotDeck, because you've pulled the brand kit together in Canva, you're now not super stressed in kind of pulling it all together because you're using the actual Canva template. Actually, we've got Larry for this one. Here we go. And there we go. Within like a few, you know, short minutes, we've got, you know, what's looking like a pretty good deck. Let's do the final one just because I'm OCD and I can't have a blank frame. Okay, so, you know, we've gone from this page to this deck in the space of, you know, what, 10 minutes or so. So we get you into like what's a pretty, and then you can start to play with this. You know, you can really start to go deep and customize it further, but I will show you a few other key tricks. You might say, well, thanks Canva for the template, but you didn't give me a page to show a timeline. Like, how are you going to create a timeline template? You could sit here all day and try to make a table. Sorry, if you do / on Canva and type in anything, it's a prompt to kind of start to create a table. Like, you could try to create a timeline using this, but it's going to take you forever. It'd take me forever. So don't do it that way. Use one of our templates. So head up into design, head into templates, and let's type in timeline. I've searched that previously. And here's every single template that lives in Canva that has a timeline type format template for you to use. So we will pick one of these. Let's pick this one. This will do. Yep. And then it's applied that to your slide. And then you can update like the copy and stuff, but you're like, well, great, thanks, Kate, but that still now looks completely off-brand for the brand kit that I've created for this. So don't worry, head back into styles, press color palette, shuffle through, and it's now looking within our color palette. Press fonts, here's all our fonts. So within a few clicks, you've brought in something and made it look cohesive. The other thing I noticed I really wanted to show you in Larry's latest deck was he had some cutouts from media articles, but they were literally just, looked like you'd just gone on and cut and paste, had you, Larry? They weren't live links. Yeah, okay, so let me show you how you can do that. Live links in Canva. So there was a Murder Hornets New York Times article that he had. I found the article online. Take the URL, copy paste into Canva, and here's that article. You don't have to spend hours kind of trying to make it look good. This is a live link, and that'll take people straight to that article. You can do this with Instagram posts, TikTok posts, so get your social media in there, and it's just a really cool way. And it looks neat, right? Like, it doesn't look like just a smattering of cut and paste jobs. So that's a really cool tip as well. You can choose to magic animate the slides. So if you want to bring in a bit more movement, a lot of our templates already have some animations built into them. You can choose, you know, to remove them all and start to do your own. So you can start to just test. If you hover over all of these options, it'll give you a whole bunch. So, you know, use this sparingly, I would say. You don't want to kind of make people dizzy when you're pitching this, but it can just kind of add that bit of color, that bit of movement. You can also just have Canva read your deck and it'll figure out, okay, we recommend kind of this style. This is going to look the best for the type of deck that you've created, and then you can apply it there. You can also apply transitions you hover your mouse between the slides. You can either add a page doing that, or you can add transitions between each slide, and you can just add some subtle kind of movements between each one and test them out there. And then it's time to share. So Larry sent me his 3 decks in PDFs. I dragged those PDFs into Canva and it created them as a presentation. A lot of you might be sending PDFs onwards of your decks for people to look at. You can totally do that in Canva. You can download anything as a PDF in all different formats. But we actually recommend not doing that because we've got this really handy tool where you can essentially spy on people to see if they're actually reading your decks. So come up here to Insights and come down here to Unique Links. So if I wanted to pitch this deck back to Larry, I'm going to sneakily make a unique link just for Larry. I'm going to copy this link. This is what I would email Larry, and this is what he would see. So he's seeing the deck, but I'm seeing, if I refresh this, well, it didn't work yet, but it'll work. But you would be able to see that he has actually viewed that, how much time he's spent on it. If you wanted to create one for me or for Netflix or whoever you're pitching it to, create a unique link for each person, and that way you can actually see when it's time to follow up. Like, I know you've read my deck, let's have a chat. So yeah, look, there's plenty of other features, but I just wanted to show you, that creative process from shot deck now onto Canva to building out your brand kit to using our entertainment templates. You can get a really long way in not a lot of time, and that's why we're here, because the less time you're spending creating the decks, the more time you're actually spending building and creating the stories that we all want to see and watch. So thank you.